What's up guys, it's Ben with Kame Trick, and today we're going to be installing a 5-point race harness into my S13 240SX. Let's get to it. If you own a drift car yourself, or if you've ridden with many friends who have grassroots style drift cars especially, you've probably experienced what it's like to drift with stock seatbelts. If they have a bucket seat in the car for you, it's not horrible, but if they have a stock seat, it's pretty bad. You have to spend a lot of effort holding yourself in the seat, and even then you still move around a whole lot. So the benefit to a 4 or 5 point harness is that it's going to hold you in the seat, and it's really important for drivers, especially when you get up into the tandem levels. I learned to drift in a fully stock interior vehicle from around 2003 to 2005. So you can learn to drift with a stock seat and it'll work fine, but here's my 2 cents. A bucket seat with stock belts are going to work a lot better for learning to drift on solo runs. Once you get into tandem, it's really going to be ideal to have a 4 or 5 point harness like this one. This is a Bridge Moto 5-point harness. It's called that because it's got 2, 4, 5 different areas that it's going to hold you in. So you've got a lap belt, 2 shoulder belts, and then an anti-submarine belt. This one is going to help hold your body in the belt system properly and not let you slide out under it, which could like compress your spine and give you some extra injuries if you ever get in a bad accident. You can release all the belts quickly by turning this cam lock, like so, to get in and out. And it's pretty easy to install. I've already started on the install by putting in 2 eye bolts through the bottom of the car. We've got one here for the anti-submarine belt, and then we've got one here for the left lap belt. With the particular Corbeau seat rails that I'm using, the right side is just going to have a welded piece built into it that's going to hold that right side of the lap belt. For the shoulder belts, I've installed a harness bar in the car, which I haven't finished fully tightening down. This is all sort of a 3-piece series of harness bar, harness, and hopefully soon upgraded seat. However, the shoulder belts are going to go in here. You do want to check the angle that these are mounted relative to the seat and the holes in the seat. The belt manufacturer is going to provide you a document, so just look over that and try to eyeball it. In the event of a bad accident, that's going to let the belts hold you in the best way possible and minimize any risk of injury that you're going to have. One additional thing that you want to do, if you're using eye bolts like I am, you're going to want to build a metal plate to go under the car and hold it against that with a nut so that they don't just rip out of this thin floor metal if you get into an accident. Using a Dremel for this seems a little excessive, but it was the only thing I had because the next size drill bit that I own is way too large. That ought to do it. Awesome. So there's that bottom piece. These things are not intended for cutting metal, obviously, but they only needed to do a bit of work for us. The lap and anti-submarine belt are going to attach using this eye bolt. They just clip in, like so. Next up, we're gonna place the seat into the vehicle. I'm gonna pull that submarine belt through, which will be easier to do with this out of the way. All right, there's that. For the anti-submarine belt, it may take a couple of tries. You wanna make sure that you get it at pretty much the length that it's gonna be when everything else is tightened up. Check your seating position, where you're gonna run it, where you're gonna sit in the seat. So this is too far back for me, and then you're gonna have to use that to get your belts the correct length. I'm gonna have to make a little bit of adjustment to mine, so the seat may come back out and back in a few times. Next up, we're going to install the left side lap belt. For this particular seat, it doesn't fit through either direction. You have to go with the tail end through first. So we're gonna feed this through the bottom. Make sure that the adjustment part is up and not flipped over like that. That can just sit down there. Then we're going to plug this back end into the eye bolt. It's also going to involve adjusting the length of this a little bit so that we don't have to pull miles of extra out of here. So I'm going to adjust this now. So these belts start through like this, and to loosen them, you push up through like this, and you take out the first part that you can, and then that will let us pull this up to shorten it, like so. And then you can pull that through here, and then this piece is a little bit short, so it takes a bit of effort, but you can walk it up the webbing. So you walk it up nice and close, and then you can pull the excess through like this. Then you can put the slack back through here like that, and that's going to complete the length adjustment process. Depending on your preferences for seating position and your size, once you finish adjusting the harness, you may have quite a long tail of fabric, and if you want to dress that up a little bit, you can clean it up with a zip tie like this. Take your extra fabric and start rolling it over on itself. It helps to have the belt attached to something so that you can pull a little bit. And then once you've got it the way that you like, you can put a zip tie through it and tie it off. There we go. And so now all that excess is just going to hang out right here. We'll just clip this off. And we're all set. Now we can plug it in. Pull it tight. And we've got a nice setup that's fairly clean. Now we're working on the shoulder harnesses. These came from Bridgemoto with eye bolt hardware, but we're not going to be using that because we've got a harness bar. You also don't need that if you have a roll cage, so I'm going to take these apart by pulling the webbing out like so, and then pulling this piece out as well. So we don't use these, or I won't be using those. Now we've pretty much got what we need to go back and install these on the harness bar. One important note for your shoulder straps: the eye bolt on the shoulder straps is not facing completely down. So one is going to face in towards the center this way, and the other will face in towards the center that way. And that's how you can tell which side is which. If you switch them up, it's not the end of the world, but this is going to make it easier for you to be able to get in and out of your harness. So take a second to make sure that you're putting the right side on the right-hand side of the seat. Next, we're going to feed the webbing through to the back of the seat. Like so. So here they are mocked up in the car. And here is where you can see those eye belts are facing in towards the center where that cam lock is going to go. That'll make it real easy for them to plug in. So meanwhile, in the back of the car, we're going to take our webbing and run it through this little strap. This is going to help us to keep everything organized. So we're going to start by doing this. And then we're going to set our length. And to do that, I'm just going to start by putting these here at the bottom and setting this amount of slack right here. So basically, I don't want to have to pull these any bigger than this to be able to get in and out. That's what I'm going to try to do. And then I can cinch it down more, of course, as needed. But I don't want these, when I'm pulling them down, to be like way down here and flapping around. But I'm not going to lie, this took some trial and error. But you're going to adjust the buckle here until when it's at the length that you want in the front, it's in this sort of a position on the bar. Then we can go ahead and do the wrap. All right, here's how we do the wrap. We're actually gonna come under the bar and up through this way. Then we're gonna come in through the bottom of our harness here. We're gonna pull this tight. Once we've pulled it tight, we're gonna come on through to the other side of the harness, like so, and we're gonna pull that tight. That is pretty much the wrap you want. The bracket here kind of supported by the bar a little bit if you can. If I had it up a little bit higher, it might even be better, but I think that this is gonna be fine. And then finally, if you want to clean it up, and this is hard because it's starting to get really tight, you can run it back through just so that it stays on the back of the bracket. That's not necessary, but it's what I would like to do. I'm gonna have to get a tool to help me cram it in there because it's a tight fit. All right, to wrap our webbing, I'm going to start with it able to come up over this little bar. This bar is really just to organize the belts. And I'm gonna make our wrap. This is probably gonna happen off camera. And once I've got our wrap, I'm actually gonna run it over this, nice and tight. I'm gonna pull this forward as though it were under tension. And then I'm gonna kind of put this over top of that where it could sit if this were under tension. Next, I'm gonna run my zip tie through, zip tie it to this little bar by pulling it through like this, and that's gonna hold it really nicely and it's gonna look great. And there you go. We'll just cut this off. And we've got one done. We'll go ahead and do the other side. And there you have it. One final thing, the belts are free to slide like this, and it's ideal to put them over at each far side. So you can position them there and then zip tie them in place just by running it down next to the belt here. And that's typically enough to keep them from walking over. You want to pull this pretty tight. And then we can angle this in a direction that won't get in anybody's way and cut it as well. And now, with those two zip ties installed, these aren't going anywhere from side to side. And when it's all pulled tight, it's gonna look great. While we were wrapping that up, there was time for our bottom plates to dry. So basically what we're gonna be doing with the eye bolts that are already in the vehicle is putting this plate on and securing it with a nut so that in the event of an accident, the pressure is going to be dispersed over a section of the floor. Otherwise, if it was just through the sheet metal, this thing would just rip right out of the sheet metal and you would go flying like in GTA. But with this piece sandwiched underneath of the vehicle sheet metal, it's going to hurt the floor a little bit, but keep you from getting hurt, which is way more important. So I'm gonna hop under the car and put those on, and that'll wrap up this install. Oh, this is awful. The car is so low to the ground now. All right. So let me see what my options are to get this in here. I may have to hammer that a little bit, or just see if it'll bend itself. Let me see if I can just get it to bend. And now I'm gonna hit it with some thread locker. Tightening it and loosening it enable me to put it on the way that I wanted. And now we'll just tighten that down. do this on all of your eye bolts under the car, and that completes the install. Hopefully you'll never need this added security, but if you ever have a big accident, you'll be glad you took the time to do this step. And now for the fun part, you get to try everything on. The lap belt's fairly quick. You're just gonna pull it over, leave one hole for the anti-submarine belt, and plug it in. Then we can pull to tighten. Next, the anti-submarine belt, or the junk strap, goes in. Then for the shoulder straps, you're just going to move them off to the side and pull them over. They plug in as well. And if you have adjusted everything correctly, it's going to be quite simple to just pull these down nice and tight, and then you are held in very securely. One nice thing about these bridge motos that I picked up is, let's see if we can see them, you can put your fingers here and actually actuate this, and that's going to make it really easy to pull them down, to make them loose, and tighten them back up. So getting out is going to be as easy as pulling those up and disengaging the cam, or if there's an emergency like the car catches fire, all you're going to have to do is pull your cam and you're out. If you found this content helpful and informative, please hit that like button. If you'd like anything clarified or you have a question about something, let me know in the comments and I'll do my best to help you out with it. And if you got a buddy who's still got their stock seats and it's letting themselves or their passenger get kind of thrown around the car while they're trying to learn to drift, then share this video with them and maybe it will inspire them to do their own 4 or 5 point harness install. It's not that hard and it makes it way easier to focus on driving, which is going to make you a better drifter. If you enjoy this sort of weekly drift life content, please consider subscribing. I'd love to have you aboard. Have a good night, guys. Peace.